Now, apparently HBO Max is planning to produce their own updated reboot of the popular Canadian teen drama Degrassi, and of course, as a Canadian myself, I can't help but feel some kind of way about it. But then I got to thinking that there are definitely a few shows that I wouldn't mind seeing get the reboot treatment themselves. Even if you're a Yankee Doodle, I bet there are a few shows from this list that you probably grew up watching yourselves, and I think they'd all be perfect to get the reboot treatment. So let's count them down. Number 5, Seeing Things. Now, I'm sure most Americans are only familiar with Louis Delgrand from this particular image. But amongst us Canadians, he has a bigger history with Canadian television, despite the fact that he was actually born in New Jersey, for writing, creating, and starring in his own supernatural comedy in the early 80s called Seeing Things, which actually ran for 6 seasons. As a newspaper reporter also named Louis, he would suffer from post-cognitive visions of the past that he would use to solve mysteries. Now, this would prove incredibly influential for Canadian television moving forward, as we would see more creators write, produce, and star in their own series that they created to this very day, including Letterkenny, Trailer Park Boys, and Workin' Moms. Now, admittedly, I have a vague recollection of this series, but it's still a concept that I think works so well that it'd be fun to see updated for new audiences. Number 4, My Secret Identity. Folks here in the States may remember this as the series where Jerry O'Connell went from that short, not as chubby preteen as he was in Stand By Me, to the statuesque Adonis that he's pretty much been since the early to mid-90s. Playing Andrew Clements, he was just an average kid who was accidentally struck by a proton laser that was created by his neighbor, Dr. Benjamin Jeffcoat, which ultimately gave him superpowers. Now, with these newfound abilities, Andrew has to balance his life as a teenager with doing the right thing with his powers and keeping all of this a secret from his friends and family outside of Dr. Jeffcoat. There's a great balance of comedy and action to the series, and you just had this whole fun, good-natured look at a kid with superpowers just trying to make it through his day-to-day. And if anyone thinks to make a reboot, all I ask is that they retain that sweet, sweet theme song. You'll never guess my secret identity. Number 3, The Odyssey. Falling out of a tree after trying to retrieve his father's telescope from a group of bullies, young Jay Ziegler is left in a coma, but his consciousness is transported to a fantasy world exclusively populated by adolescents and teenagers. There are disparate tribes of adolescents who all live in fear of those who reside in the tower, who are the oldest teens in this world, and rule over the disparate tribes with an iron fist. Talk about some Kid Nation shit, right? The Odyssey was a pretty in-depth examination of the trials and tribulations of adolescence, with a little bit of mystery thrown in, especially when we got into later seasons that revealed that Jay's father, who had been missing and presumed dead, was actually alive the whole time. The show would also serve as a jumping point for a lot of Canadian actors that would become well-known here in the States, including Devon Sawa, Jewel State, Sarah Chalk, as well as this one kid who, I don't know if he went on to do much, but we're still pulling for you, Ryan Reynolds. Number 2, Forever Knight. Oh, what, you thought Angel was the first show about a vampire who solved supernatural crimes while driving around in a 50s-style automobile? Think again, Canadians beat you to the punch. Forever Knight revolved around a Toronto police detective named Nicholas Knight, who has a dark secret that he's an 800-year-old vampire. Working the night shift for the police department, he's able to solve crimes both conventional and supernatural in the hopes of atoning for his sins after several centuries, and maybe even try and become mortal again with the help of the city's coroner. Now, here's the funny thing about Forever Knight, because it actually started its life as a television movie called Nick Knight, that was aired here on CBS in the States and starred Rick Springfield. And the plan was for Springfield to star in a subsequent series on the CBS network. For whatever reason, they decided to pass on the series, but us Canucks swooped in and said, hey, this concept is too good to pass up, so they worked out a deal to develop the series in Canada with an all-new cast, and the ironic thing is, when it aired here in the States, it was still airing on CBS affiliates on Sunday nights after the local news. This was definitely a show I was obsessed with as a kid, and it just had all of those great elements of vampire fiction that you wanted to have. It was dark, it was sexual, it was very brooding and just atmospheric, and there was just that whole great opening sequence that was very ominous, and you just kind of loved to see where it went, and it went places. I mean, there was so much about this series that you would just think to yourself, wow, even for the mid-90s, that was kind of taboo. And don't even get me started on how the series ended, because damn it if that isn't one of the downer of all downers. I even think about Nicholas's vampire compatriots Lacroix and Jeanette and how analogous they are to Spike and Drusilla. And I'm just thinking to myself, did Joss Whedon do a whole ass Jack move when he was creating Angel? Number 1, Reboot. If you grew up in the early to mid-90s, you most certainly watched Reboot on ABC. Like, how could you not? This was one of the most groundbreaking Saturday morning cartoons ever made, the first to have fully CG animated characters, and it was just this great idea of this whole world that took place inside your computer, where we had the city mainframe that was protected by the Guardian Bob, who befriended citizens Enzo and his older sister Dot, as well as a few others, and fought against the threat of the virus Megabyte, as well as occasionally having to match wits with fellow virus Hexadecimal. The series was an amazing blend of action, comedy, drama, intrigue. There was a lot of parodies from the whole games that would be sent by users into mainframe that the citizens would have to fight and win unless they wanted that whole section of their city to be nullified by the GameCube. So there are definitely stakes in this series that were pretty damn high. And it's a shame because the show actually got canceled twice on cliffhangers, and it's just insane how that all ended, and I would just love to have an opportunity for them to reboot this series and do something better, if not, just continue the story from where things left off at the end of its 4th season. Wait a minute, wasn't there already a reboot of Reboot that came out a few years ago on Netflix? No. That was a piss-poor attempt at rebooting Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, and less said about Reboot the Guardian Code, the better. Hey guys, thanks for watching as always. If you've got your own thoughts or opinions on this video, or if you've got some recommendations for Canadian television shows that you would like to see rebooted, go ahead and leave a comment in the section below. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the notification bell, share this video with your friends and family, and if you'd like to keep up to date with more at random videos, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button right over here.